Well, welcome to this open forum tonight with the Mayor of Cobourg, Lucas Cleveland. My name is Linda Kay, and I am, like you, here tonight to listen to our Mayor about our town. But before we start, I just would like to do our land acknowledgement. The town of Cobourg respectfully acknowledge that we are located in the traditional and treaty territory of the Mishi, Sagi, and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. The town of Cobourg respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaties First Nations have been stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters, and that today remain vigilant over their health and integrity for generations to come. We are all treaty people. I have lived here too many years to say, but I must say this is the first time that I can remember that a mayor has held an open forum like this. When elected Mayor Cleveland did so on the platform of being accountable and transparent. It has been a year since that election and council's election, and tonight Mayor Cleveland will provide an update on the past year, plus give you as residents, taxpayers, the opportunity to ask questions of the mayor. At this time, I just wanted to acknowledge that we do have members of council here this evening, and they're sitting in the front row, as well as our CAO of the town and the directors of the town of Cobourg. I just wanted you to know they were also here this evening. So the mayor will have a presentation, and following the mayor's presentation, we will open the floor up to questions from the community. The town communication staff are on hand this evening and will be reading questions that have been pre-submitted online, and there were questions online. Over 60 questions were submitted. The mayor will then alternate between questions that have been read and questions live from the floor. So these are some of the rules for this evening. If you have a question, please approach one of two microphones on the floor, and I'm going to put this microphone back over there. When you speak, please state your first name. To ensure as many people as possible have a chance to ask their question, please keep your question to a maximum of 3 minutes, and no follow-up questions, please. If you already have had an opportunity to ask a question, please turn the mic over to the next person in line. Again, with the aim of hearing from as many people as possible, if a question already has been asked in either the same or similar way to yours, please do not re-ask the question. We ask that only one person speak at a time. Please refrain from side conversations so we can all hear the questions and answers. And finally, please, everyone, treat all participants with respect. There will be zero tolerance for heckling, personal attacks, harassment, or hate speech of any kind. The town of Cobourg identifies a professionalism as a core value. For us to have a productive and engaging discussion tonight, we ask that you all show respect for the opinions of everyone in the room. This is an exciting opportunity, and as I said, a first of its kind in Cobourg. Mayor Cleveland is making the office of the mayor open and accessible to all residents. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Mayor Lucas Cleveland.
Is my microphone live? There it is. Okay, we'll just make sure we don't have any feedback. I had spent weeks memorizing it, but as soon as I walked up here, I'm just glad I have a copy of my speech. How are we doing over there, Mr. Gertz? I can hear a little bit of feedback. Perfect. Hello, everybody. Thank you. I'm really blown away with the turnout. We had a bunch of bets going anywhere between 50 and 500, so I have definitely lost. I really do appreciate it. It's actually quite humbling how many of you are here this evening. Everyone can hear me? See Shad shaking? Okay, perfect. I want to take a moment just to say thank you to all of you for showing up tonight, to my fellow councilors that have arrived, to the town staff of Northumberland County that are here, as well as the wonderful staff of Cobourg. I see you, I see how hard you all work day in, day out, and I thank you for trusting me with this crazy idea I had tonight of having the first of its kind town hall. Thank you to those attending for our MP and our MPP's office, to those tuning in from IO, hello. I really want to thank this incredible community. It's a community that I've really come to call home and love these last 7 years. And I want to say to those that have come here tonight, to those that have submitted the questions in advance, to those joining us through various streaming methods, I think we're on live at YouTube, and to those that will watch the recording later on. To those that have taken the time over the last 12 months to come into the office at Victoria Hall, to have the heartfelt one-on-one conversations and to really share with me your concerns, your love, your fears, and your hope for the community, thank you. Thank you for caring so much that you can't help but show up on a Tuesday night to listen to me speak. I really do appreciate this. Most of all, thank you for your time tonight and for the attention you're paying. I know that time is the most valuable resource we all have, and I'm going to try and make use of yours this evening as quickly as we can. Before we get started, thank you so much to Cobourg Communications team, the County Communications team, and to the Cobourg Police Service Communication team. We have a very small teams at all 3 levels, and they hit regularly above their weight. On top of their regular work for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, they've been having to prep me for this night, and I just really appreciate the extra work. The same shout out goes to the staff here at the CCC, who on top of their regular jobs set everything up today. So thank you to them. I'll skip a lot of that. To the directors present tonight, and to my 2 incredible CAOs that I see in the audience. To my fellow councilors, thank you for being so patient with me. Thank you for embracing my energy, my enthusiasm, my humor, and my candor. And thank you for working with me to really understand what goes on to run 2 massive corporations, both the town of Cobourg and the county of Northumberland. Thank you to the previous leadership, because the reason we are in the situation we are in Cobourg, and we have our problems, no one's denying that. But the reason I am the envy of most mayors that I meet is because this community, I can stand on the shoulder of giants. They've led this community in a way that's put us in a position where we're just now starting to deal with the problems that other communities have been dealing with for a decade or longer. I really feel privileged to be dealing with the problems we have. I come from some towns out in Alberta on the oil rigs, and I grew up in Scarborough. And I think perspective is an incredible thing, especially when you need to stay positive day after day and make sure that you're ready to solve the problems that we need to solve. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thanks to Linda Kay. I mean, she is a powerhouse of a human, a leader of leaders in the community, and I got a much needed boost of confidence, and when she agreed to stand up here with me tonight and introduce me and stand alongside. Getting the opportunity this year to serve this community as mayor has been one of the most incredible and humbling experiences I've had. It's also the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I worked on an oil rig for 12 years. I'm honored every single morning that I get the opportunity to come. It's a little surreal. I wake up and I realize, oh, that's right, I get to go work for this community again. While I'm exceptionally nervous to be up here tonight, I am excited to have what I believe is a much needed conversation with the community. And I guess so without further ado, we'll get into this year's year in review. Switch the slides if it's okay. So why are we here tonight? And I've been sort of milling as you've all been coming in, asking a lot of you why you're here to understand. For some of you, it's about getting answers and you want them now. Some are talking about the encampment. Others want to talk about stormwater fees. There's a few of you out there who are interested about a more recent announcement from the county. For some of you, I'm just going to ask, oh, there, I do have my water. Wonderful. For some of you, it's because you want to express frustration with the way things are. For some of you, you've seen us in a new council with a new mayor, and you haven't seen the changes you expected fast enough. For some of you, you're the employees of Cobourg County and you have to be here, or the councils. And for some, you're here because I asked to have a few friendly faces in the audience. Thank you for coming, Mom. I'd also be naive if I didn't recognize that there's some are here for an entertainment value and that maybe some of you are even hoping something tonight goes a little viral. I mean, we all slow down to look at accidents, there's no judgment. But what I told our staff, what I told the council, what I told my family and friends is that I have nothing but faith in the integrity and goodness of this community. And I know that together we're going to make this night an incredible success. So what would that look like? What would be success tonight? I asked that question too. And I've got one woman's answer that I'm going to sort of stick with because it really sort of spoke to me. She said that I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize for messing this up. But she said something along the lines of, I sketched it. I came for the opportunity to be with my community. She said tonight's a chance for us to come together and to feel a sense of hope for the future of this community that I just love. She went on to say that more than anything, she wants to leave here with a sense of confidence and some positivity as she walks out the door, feeling that not only are there people in charge, but that the people in charge have a plan and that there's an end goal to get to. It's a lot to ask. It's literally the first time we've done this. So I'm not going to say we're going to do that, but we're going to give it a try. Why am I here? I'm here because I promised when I ran that I just saw my dad, now I'm in trouble. I made a promise when I ran that I would be as accountable and transparent as I possibly could be. And this is kind of part and parcel of that. But more importantly, I said three things. I said we're going to build teams. So I'm here tonight because I work on incredible teams. My council, my staff, I say my council, I apologize, the council and the staff. I'm very protective of them. I want them to be respected for the incredible work they do. And so I'm here as a teammate to talk about the work they've done because I don't think enough people pay attention to how much is actually getting done in this community. I'm here for accountability and transparency, obviously, and I'm here because we talk about progress over perfection. I'm not sure how many of you know, but we just did an entire governance review, and we started a new government model in 2024. Literally, we've rewritten the way we do government in Cobourg this last year. And part of that is we're going to be introducing town halls into our future governance model. So I figured I would be the one to step up here and make all the mistakes first before our clerk's department has to actually construct how this goes. Failure, then we find success. Some of you may hear I have an open door policy. If you don't, I do. It's the first door on the left. If I'm there, the door's open and I welcome anyone inside it. Some people have taken it to say hi, others to yell. It's open for a reason. Come in and use it. But what I found is over the last 3 to 4 months, there's a lot of you that's been taking advantage of it. And I keep having the same conversation over and over. The same 5 or 6 questions just keep popping up. And I'm really big into efficiencies and effectiveness. And so I figured it would be probably more effective and efficient if I just showed up here, let all the questions come in at once, and then hopefully we can continue moving on and we can get back to work. Go to the next one. Let's look at our agenda. So why are we here today? My intention is to keep this as brief as possible. At one point I had it at 25 minutes. With some additions, we're somewhere in 30. I'll try and talk less. But we're going to start. I'm 100% hoping to set the record straight today on some misconceptions, some misinformation, and I really just want to offer you guys a perspective that I now have. I walked in here, eyes wide open, with not a lot of experience, and so I learned a lot this year, and I thought maybe some of you would like to know some of the things that I've discovered and come to understand. My hope is to shed some light onto why things are going the way they are, why it feels like maybe we're not making any progress or even going backwards, why some things feel worse after a year of us being in office. And I want to talk about some of the great work that's actually gone on. For the presentation, we're going to dive into it, focus on Cobourg. We're going to touch on a few county issues, but I assume most of that will be coming into questions and answers. We're going to talk about the important and necessary first step that we took as build a solid foundation as a community. We're going to talk about where we found ourselves today, and then we're going to talk about where did we come from a year ago, so that we can actually compare and contrast where we started, where we are. And then we're going to just really briefly talk about where we came from. Where we're going as a council is really important, and what to expect over the next 3 years of this council. We're going to summarize some of the things you can expect. You can lay out a few of the bigger seeds we've planted, as well as maybe try to temper some of the expectations about what we can and what we can't do as a community. As individuals, we're always known to overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 5. I think that's even more so when we look at big organizations, government, and corporations. We always overestimate what we can accomplish in a quarter or in a year, but we are never setting our goals in those 5 and 10-year increments that we should. I'm proud to say that I now work for 2 corporations that actually do that and are actually making plans for the next 10, 15, and 20 years out. Please note that tonight is not a one and done. It's an experiment, but we will be having lots of opportunities to engage with the mayor, as well as engage with our council. And this kind of openness, this transparency, this accountability is what this council will be doing as we move forward. So let's look at where we are today. I think it's a good place to start. So where we are after 12 months into the election. I mean, I'm personally very proud of the work we've done, and I'm really proud of the accomplishments, and I talk about it way too much with my friends. But I also understand that for the most of the people in this room, you're looking at me going, what work got done? To many of you feel like we're actually worse off. So where are we? Well, we're a community in transition. We're a community that was on a particular path for about 20 years, and about 10, we shifted gears. We started to transition from a really small urban center in a massive rural community to becoming, unfortunately or fortunately, a de facto member of the GTA. Now, this council is continuing the work to adapt to the changes that current growth has really forced onto this community. And we've begun the hard work of adapting our government, our policies, and our priorities to kind of reflect the changes that we are just having to face. We are a community that for years resisted growth. And we tried to avoid changing because we all love Cobourg so much. And I'm going back into a history that I wasn't present for. This is a history I've learned from a lot of you. As I've been out there talking to you, you're the ones that have informed me that Cobourg has had this history of loving to be the same and not wanting to grow. We are a council that acknowledged in our election platforms that the way things worked before were no longer serving us, and we were looking at all trying to do things a little differently. I mean, isn't the definition of insanity trying to get new results out of the same stuff, same tactics? We are a community where everyone thinks that they have a simple answer to a very, very complex set of problems. And where everyone seems to think that they have the idea that's the silver bullet. We're a community that has forgotten that ideas are actually the easy part of the equation. And that most solutions to the problems we're having are both available, known, and pretty systematic. It's not that we don't know how to solve or work on homelessness. It's not that we don't understand how to treat mental health disorders. It's not that we don't understand proper infrastructure safety. It's about having the appropriate staff, the time, the dedicated resources, the money, the political will, the courage to do the actual work that's necessary to solve those problems. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's like thinking that the secret to owning a multi-million-dollar bakery is the bread recipe. I mean, you can always get a bread recipe. It's very available. You can look it up. Just like all of our problems, there are solutions to them. It's taking the recipe and all of the work after that that's actually the impediment to making that thing happen. We also have a community that has unbelievable potential and an opportunity with future growth that's just incredible and at our door if we want to take advantage of it. We are a community that needs to start investing more into our infrastructure, into our assets, with better budgeting guidelines and principles. We are a community that needs to have some very, very difficult conversations about what we want for services and what we are willing to pay for the services we want. We need to decide what civic services we're willing to give up if we want to create new services. Or we raise taxes. It's a simple mathematical equation, folks. There's only so much money. And what most people don't understand or know, I know I didn't, is that 80 to 85% of our budgets are pretty much predetermined. We don't actually have say over a lot of what we spend our money on because it's mandated by other levels of government. And so when we're looking at, actually I'm going to hold off, back up and we'll get into that. More importantly, we are actually today in Cobourg, the largest urban center in Northumberland. And so with that comes problems and issues that we cannot avoid by pretending we're not going to get them. But we must instead accept these issues and find ways of dealing with them. Now, we're really starting to experience big city problems in Cobourg, but the problem is we don't have a big city budget. We have an incredibly divided community right now. We have those advocates to the far left and the advocates to the far right becoming more entrenched. And with the algorithms on social media, the negative, pessimistic voices are continually amplified. I was a salesman for years. It's always easier to sell a bad story than a good one. And so what we're seeing is that algorithm take that and multiply it over and over again throughout our social media. The problem is that while we are entrenching ourselves to the left and to the right, while we are fueling these debates, what's happening is the system of governance is sitting in the middle, because that's where governance is supposed to be. And we're saying, hey, everyone, come to the middle and let's have a conversation. Let's solve some problems. Let's talk about this. And there's just further and further entrenchment, and no one willing to necessarily come to the middle to have the dialogue. So how does this council decide to start? We'll switch out. We started by building a strong foundation. I'm going to use a bit of a metaphor here. Bear with me. It made sense in my head before I'm standing up here with all of you. If you're living in a house, let's call that house Cobourg, let's call that house Northumberland County. And you live in this house and you love this house. It's a house you chose to live in. It's a house that has a great beach view. It's a house that has a lot of heritage characteristics. It's not a house without its problems. It's not one of those fancy Scandinavian houses. It's expensive to live in this house, and there's problems and there's cracks. But over the years, we've repaired those cracks. Over the years, we've patched them up. It's a little unplumbed, but we're moving forward, and we like this house. We know there's much nicer houses, but we all chose to live in this house. And for some of you, you've lived in this house for generations. In 2015, we started to see some cracks show up in our house. But we patched it. We didn't spend too much money. We fixed it. But we started to notice some real changes around Cobourg in this house of ours. And then hit the pandemic. And what did the pandemic do? It's like an earthquake in our house. And it shook the house like crazy. And all the cracks got worse. And all of our patchwork of 20 years fell down. I'm going to go on with this. We're living in this house looking around after the pandemic going, well, it was our home, but I don't want to live here anymore, and I don't think I like this house anymore. And we're looking at all of the damage the earthquake has caused, and we don't even know where to start fixing it. I think it says a lot because all the emails that I get, and all the emails council gets, and all the emails staff get, everyone wants to talk about redoing the bathroom. Everyone wants to talk about remodeling the kitchen. No one wants to talk about actually doing the foundational work with which we're going to build an actual system on that can solve all of our problems moving forward. I'm proud to say that this council, from day one, didn't set out to do patchwork. This council came together as a team and worked with our incredible staff to build cohesion and a team approach. And we decided as a group that we're not going to waste our time doing patchwork all over the house, but instead we're going to get down to work and we're going to dig out a new foundation and we're going to actually take our time to get it right. What does foundational work look like? It looks like a complete governance review. That's what we did. We rewrote the... I want to talk about that because what has happened through this governance review is we've endorsed a unique governance model unique to Cobourg. It starts operating in 2024. It's made, or at least it's been designed for more efficiency, more transparency, more accountability. It's designed for better operations. Sure, we all know it's going to have challenges. Remember, progress over perfection. We are instituting a new governance model. Of course, there's going to be a learning curve. But we designed it fundamentally to do better at our jobs. It's to foster teamwork and collaboration and to ensure that the public's knowledge, experience, and capabilities are harnessed when it's appropriate and when it's the most needed. Foundational work looks like doing a customer service review to fully understand where we were failing at our service levels so that we can actually build a plan to fix the problems and not just keep chasing our tails. Foundational work looks like hiring an economics manager and then developing an actual economic development strategy. I mean, there's a reason why in downtown Cobourg we have the lowest numbers of vacancy in like 30 years. There's a reason why we have almost no manufacturing space left and instead are looking at planning hundreds of thousands of new factory spaces because we filled up all the old ones. That doesn't happen because it happens because we're building a foundation that's actually creating a system of government that's going to work better. Foundational work looks like work, and while you might like to hear this, foundational work looks like following through with funding plans to assure our assets and our infrastructure, like stormwater, are properly funded for future generations. And what I realized is that the county, when I got up there and I started learning what was going on, much of that foundational work that we've been doing in Cobourg right now has been done in the last 5 to 7 years. And they're well on their way to starting to build on top of some solid foundation. This past year in Cobourg, I told you, we didn't spend any time sort of doing the politically savvy thing to do or making the decision that looks good but isn't going to solve any problems. Instead, we came together as a team and we got to work fixing the foundation to ensure when the next earthquake comes, those cracks won't collapse our house. You see, the thing is when you have a really good foundation, everything else that you're building on top of that, like when you make sure your foundation's plumb and level, everything you build gets easier and it gets faster. And if you want to talk about how much faster, this is a good example of how much faster. Watch what? Quick. 300% more building starts this year compared to the previous 3 years. We know we have a housing crisis, right? Like that's not unknown. And in the last year, we have been able to get 300% more building starts. And that's just not $1 million homes, folks. We learned from the Housing Forum that we've actually had an unprecedented number of new affordable RGI and transitional housing units built as well. This is what foundational work looks like. This is why proper foundation matters. You see, towards the last term of council and at the beginning of this one, our planning and our building department team have been rebuilding their foundation. It's hired a new and dynamic staff. It's begun implementing incredible technology for efficiencies, like class-leading efficiencies. And in doing the work, they've set up a system that will continually get better, better, and better. But this didn't just happen. When we look at, there's other examples of successes, so many examples of foundational work, but the difference is this is on top of running these corporations. They're doing these tasks on top of the day-to-day operations of running a $220 million county corporation or a $30 million town of Cobourg corporation. So one good one is our AMP system. It's a new municipality penalty system. I don't know if you guys know, but right now in the provincial courts, they're backlogged so bad that millions of dollars of fines and tickets are being thrown out. Our clerk's department for the last 2 years have done the foundational work. There's no other municipalities around that have an AMP system, just us. And this is going to literally save this community millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, because now we don't have to go through the provincial court system. We have our own. Expanding customer service training, communication capabilities, expanding our care and support for our servicemen and women. These are all foundational principles that we worked on this year that will reap rewards for years to come, because it's going to save us on expenses of retention, new staff training. We're going to take care of the people that are serving this community better, and we're going to start to communicate better with all of you. If you want to talk about sustainability, because I see my sustainability crowd in the house tonight, let's not just talk about our ICSP plan, which again was internationally recognized, but let's talk about like our environmental services. We've moved ahead with our ozone water treatments. We're actually getting rid of chlorine in Cobourg. We're switching to like front and center, top of the line ozone. We've got the Sequence batch reactor, which actually is now making Cobourg money, because we're not only dealing with our own waste, we're actually taking on waste, processing it for a fee, lowering our own tax dollars. Again, we can look at this, whether you want to look at the CCTV expansion with the police, the community police patrols, the dynamic patrols. You want to talk about the creation of a peer support team, the expansion of our MHART, our HARP, and our community meetings. Guys, let's talk about the closure of several homes in this community that were unsafe and unfit for humans to live in. These are places that have been around for 10 to 12 years. This is the year we finally address those problems. Nope, I think I lost my page. That's never good. This is why I'm glad I have it all printed. Sorry, folks. Oh, perfect. So, that's good to know. Have a read, have a talk, come in and talk. So I'm going to go to the next slide, Kara. I just lost my page. So where did we start? Well, let's talk about where we started, because now we see some of the work we've done. Again, that's just the highlights. But after a year, it's good to look about where we started. And let's paint that picture for everyone. And I think we should just address the elephant in the room. I think most of you are here, and if you're frustrated, it's because where we started a year ago doesn't feel that much different than where we are right now. And that's okay. I get the question all the time, but you've had a year, Mr. Mayor. Why is nothing better? You've had a year, Mr. Mayor. Why are we still dealing with homelessness? I can empathize, but I want to stress that most of you were upset with the exact same things you're upset with a year ago. This isn't a new phenomenon for politicians, especially ones like myself who were elected on a change mandate. This community's reaction of frustration, that's totally predictable and expected, and I knew it's sort of why I needed to run, because I knew that this wasn't going to be a term for the faint of heart. And I knew that we needed someone willing to make the decisions necessary and being willing to be very unpopular while making those decisions. So, going into the election last year, let's just talk about it. There was a massive housing crisis last year. People were struggling to find affordable housing. There were individuals who were committing criminal acts a year ago in a variety of neighborhoods, troublesome houses that people wanted something done about. There was an opioid crisis that led to a host of issues around town. There were some real serious issues in Cobourg due to the convergence of poverty, homelessness, mental health, and addiction. A year ago, we didn't have enough doctors and nurses for our families, let alone enough doctors and nurses for wraparound care for traumatized individuals who need high acute care. Our a year ago, our healthcare system was still backlogged, burnt out, facing massive shortages. In fact, across all departments at both the county and Cobourg level a year ago, we were facing massive staff shortages. There were encampments around town a year ago. The provinces and feds were continuing to download costs to municipalities. Again, not an opinion on it, just a fact. The courts were beyond backed up. Criminal cases, Severe criminal cases were being thrown out because of the statute of limitations. There were people who were unsheltered who refused to go into treatment or to take advantage of the shelter system. Inflation had gone up an unprecedented amount, yet we had kept our tax increases minimal or non-existent, while also hiring a lot of positions that were very politically well received. We did not know all the costs of our aging infrastructure, nor were we spending enough money and preparing to replace it. The needs of our most vulnerable of our community were constantly getting more and more complex, while the funding to serve them from other levels of government was staying the same. There was a growing movement about safe supply that was coming to Cobourg that didn't include the other aspects that are important to a comprehensive drug strategy. Local journalism was on the decline. A new low hit Canadians in terms of their faith in politicians, in government, or in the rule of law. The community continued to demand better services, faster turnaround times, hiring more professionals so we had less consultants, and a more robust transit system, but they also wanted much lower taxes and to reduce staff wages. There was entrenchment from both sides of the political spectrum. Pretty much everything I just said is still present today, hence the frustration. But it's important to remember that this was all present before, and what's really important to remember is that of all the issues I just listed, 95% of them have absolutely nothing to do with municipal governance or the county. We don't have the mandate, the authority, the ability, or the financial resources to tackle 95% of the issues I just listed. That's so important to understand tonight, ladies and gentlemen. All of the complaints that you have, every single one of your councillors has as well, and is working hard to address those. We live in this community too. I live on King Street. There's nothing you're going to tell me tonight that I haven't seen, witnessed, or experienced myself. I think it's important to realize that, and if you take nothing else tonight away, it's to understand that we have lanes to operate in. The lower tier, the upper tier, the province, and the feds. So, time for a change. That's where we started. I'll get the next slide up. Thank you. I came to office as mayor 13 months ago, and I was an outsider, little political experience, came to office with a slim margin, and less than 45% of the people showed up to vote. Many of you were understandably upset. Let's just say what we all know. I wasn't voted so much for my great ideas, my charm, my good looks. What I was voted for was because it was a change. And I'm not just like being humble, the stats back that up. You see, the election stats in 2022 municipal cycle had a huge sweep of first-time mayors and councillors across the province, all with almost no experience. A sad fact from our last election was that there was also the highest number of uncontested seats to mayors ever in history. I think what really speaks volume is that it was also one of the lowest voter turnouts. I think it says a lot that people have such low faith in the system. It shows that people don't really value local government or even understand the purpose of it, to be honest. I think it speaks to how disenfranchised most in the community are feeling. I think it's sad that there are so few willing to step up and actually serve the community to try and make it better and not just want to blog about it and complain about it. So let's call a spade a spade. You guys wanted change, you voted for change, and then everything hasn't changed. Or at least it doesn't feel like it. That's where most of this frustration is coming from, and that's okay. We all want it to get better. And remember we just talked about sitting in a damaged house after an earthquake? I mean, it's still our home, we're still living here. It feels broken, and we're all really overwhelmed because we don't know where to fix it. We don't know where to start. It's just, there's so much to work on. But that's because change happened to us. I'll go to the next one. And now I love change personally. I feed off it. I think it's either my entrepreneurial spirit or my ADHD, I'm not really sure. But I know that for many, change is a tricky thing, and it's difficult to navigate. But it's something I love and I thrive on. And as we get older, change gets harder. If you look at the average age of Cobourg, I mean, it makes sense that maybe change is a little harder for Coburg than it is most communities. It's weird because humans constantly claim that they want to change, but then they also know how hard it is changing just one bad habit in yourself, let alone the bad habits of an organization that's, say, 300 people large. I'm not saying we haven't changed it, because we have, but sometimes it takes a while to see cultural shifts in an organization. Needless to say that no matter what the change is made, and I mean this across the board, no matter what change you make, 40 to 45% of the people who that change affect are not going to like the change, even before the effects of that change are known. I joke often with other mayors when they ask how we're getting so much done, because other mayors are actually seeing the work that are getting done here, and they're like, how are you guys getting so much work done? And I joke, I say, well, the trick with the Coburg is if you just keep changing a little bit at a time, they don't have time to get mad about this change because they're too busy getting upset with the next one you're already moved on to. It's kind of worked. We do keep moving, and we're moving very quickly. We're making changes because that's what needed to happen if you want to start solving the problems. Because up until now, we've allowed change to happen to us. You can choose to avoid change, but that doesn't change anything. I mean, I already spoke earlier that one of the biggest challenges for this council and this community was the legacy about avoiding change. It's something I ran into at the beach canteen when I first came here. Like, I changed the French fries in this community and it lost its mind. I changed the ice cream, they were yelling at us on the beach. Changed even ice cream and French fries. I remember going to open the market. Everyone told me that it wouldn't work because, you know, peaches. They figure if you tried it once and it didn't work, well then it will never work again. What I'm saying is that this organization and this community have intentionally tried to stay small and the same, and I understand why. I came here once and I sold everything and moved here. I get it. This is a gem on Lake Ontario that you want to protect. That when you find it and you move here, you never want it to change again. I understand. That's why I ran for mayor, because I wanted to keep this community on the right path. So let's say it like it is. I came to office in a transition period. It was because of a world pandemic, a housing crisis, an opioid crisis. It was due to our vicinity of the GTA. But, how did I miss that? Amazing. I apologize, folks. I love that. That makes me upset. Oh, there it is. Coburg started changing on many fronts. The economics changed, these residents changed, the staff changed, the council makeup changed, the political landscape changed, the expectations of government have changed, and it continues to change quickly. The problem, of course, being that this community was in the business of trying to avoid change and allowing it to happen to us. And so we really needed to start a foundation, get to the foundational work to take control of our change. And in order to do that, we need the vision. So we're going to talk about that. That's what everyone kept telling me during the election. They said, there's no way you're going to win, Lucas, because you haven't painted a vision. Lucas, you need to do more comprehensive vision work. We need to know what your vision is for the community. Even last night at the council, after our meeting, I had an email. Why aren't you supporting the grants? What's your vision for the future of this community? So I like to play the game and I say, well, it's one of 7, so it's not my vision, it's the council's vision. That's first and foremost. And I think you're all right. We do need a vision for the future of Coburg. And I mean, I was personally clear with my vision, and I know every single member of my council team was very clear with their vision at the election time. I told everyone that I wanted to make Coburg the best place. So we're going to go to the next slide. Ladies and gentlemen, on the left here you see to be the best place to live in Canada. My website's still up. It's lucasforcoburg.ca. I paid for the 5 years because that's what accountability means. Go on the website. It talks about the 5 pillars that I wanted to see changes for: town halls, seniors, families, major projects, and businesses. Every morning I wake up, well, not every morning, that's a lie. every week I get to my schedule and I look at what my schedule's like, and then I go over what I told you guys I was gonna do, and I make sure that my schedule matches up with the things told you I was gonna work on. But I'm just one of 7, and I don't get to make the decisions. So I had to really readjust my approach. When you're on the oil and gas rigs and you're the boss, it's a much different situation of leadership. As a mayor, I didn't have anyone to delegate to. I don't really have any privilege. I don't have employees that work for me. And I have to lead through a consensus of working with 6 other adults who are brilliant, motivated, and visionary in their own right. Hello, learning curve. So I did the research. That's when you feel like you're out of your element, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go do the research. I spoke to as many municipal leaders as I could in those first 2 or 3 months. I had meetings with almost 45 different mayors across Canada and some in the US. In my first 3 months, I spoke to almost 250 years of municipal leadership, and I asked them everything I could under the sun about how to work with councillors, how to get things done, what are the problems you face, how do you avoid this, how do you get that? If anyone wants to know where I learned the most, there's a book called The Mayor. It's written by a legend of Canadian municipal politics, George Cuff. And I highly recommend anyone who wants to understand what the actual job of the mayor to do is. It's like how to be a mayor for dummies. What I learned from others' experience and advice was that the best way to build a team and the best way to create trust in council and the best way to get more work done was to figure out what each member of my council really wanted to achieve in their terms and to start doing the work to find out what their passions were and what they wanted to affect. You see, what mattered to them so much that they decided to put their name in the hat for a life as an elected official in a smaller town. I was taught years ago on the oil rigs by my first driller that leadership isn't dragging people around telling them what to do. And I had to remember this lesson. A real leader is actually the one that's standing behind the team, creating leaders on their team so that they can be leaders in their own right, while you're walking around picking up anything behind because you don't think you're above the work you're asking others to do. So I figured that if I really wanted to achieve those results, my objectives and my dreams, that I'd better show each one of my counselors that they can trust in me and to work with me. They have to see that I'm willing to work for them, that I'm worthy of the leadership of this community, and that I'm willing to help in any way I can to make their visions an actual reality. The community picked each one of them just as much as they picked me, and so my job was actually to work for them. You see, we have a dynamic council with very peculiar, intelligent, and interesting individuals who I consider honored to work with. Each of them has so much love and care for this community, and I would not do them justice to really try and explain what each one matters to them because they have so much that they want to work on. You will be blown away at the visionary leadership you have on this council if you take the time to meet with them and talk to them about what they're doing day in and day out. Now that said, we still needed to come up with a unified vision, and we did it. And I'm really proud of it. This council has come out with one of the most succinct and uncomplicated, clearly laid out strategic plans that I have found on record for municipal government. There was a lot of criticism, and there still is, of our strategic plan when we did it this way. You see, we did some of it in closed session where we did some brainstorming. It didn't move any of the agenda along, and we followed the rules, but we got criticized for that. I'm proud of that, because we were able to let down our guard and be vulnerable and actually honest. There wasn't any politicking. There wasn't any grandstanding. We opened up and had honest, real conversations about how we are going to work for this community. We didn't promise a bunch of things to gain political points, because that's what most strategic plans are. If you look at the last one or the ones before, most governments, here's 200 things we're going to do for you. Well, actually compare it at the end of 4 years and see how many of those things have actually gotten done. It's not promising. So instead, our vision can be seen through our 3 strategic priorities: thriving community, service excellence, and sustainability. Under each of those priorities, there are 4 strategic actions that we expect our staff to prioritize. And then under those 3 categories, there's 4 specific questions under each priority. And that is so that we as a council and and the staff we work with can ask these specific questions every time they are going to make a decision. This is a tool to be used, not a political document. That's what a strategic plan is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be a document where we tell you all the things you want to hear. A strategic plan is about actually laying out the plan for all of you about what we're going to focus on. It's like 8 pages long. It's not a long read. If you want to read it, it's all over the internet. You can see the connection on the back, and I believe we have some at the back door as well. It's a good read, and if you're really wondering about the plan we have, that's it. We're going to build a thriving community. We're going to make sure we have service excellence, and we're going to work towards sustainability. Sustainability in the environment, sustainability in our finances, sustainability in our quality of life. Sustainability can mean so many incredible things. Once you have a clear vision of the house, I'm going to go back to that terrible analogy, but I'm going to stick with it. So once you have a clear vision of the house you wanted to live in, and once we took a good hard look at where we wanted to go, once we saw the repairs that were needed and the additions we needed, we didn't really start arguing as a council about the design of the bathrooms. Instead, this council and this staff came together with trust, collaboration, a sense of purpose, and they really decided to put the time and effort into the foundational work that was sorely needed to guide the design of the whole house moving forward. So I guess it's time to talk about what to expect moving forward. What you can expect moving forward over the next 12 months is that Cobourg County will focus their efforts on priorities outlined in their respective strategic plans. That's what we're going to work on. If you want to know what the focus is, it's in black and white. And if you don't want to read it, as I said, come talk to the counselors, come talk to myself. We have an open door policy. We'll happily walk you through what we're trying to accomplish. But what you can expect to see is that after year 1, after getting this team to come together and really gel, after building trust and cohesion, after making a few mistakes, after learning what each of us wants to work on, and after learning our individual strengths and weaknesses, working hard to create trust between the council and our staff, we're going to keep making the foundational decisions that are needed to set this community's future. We will continue to do the hard foundational work to look into our reserve policies. We're going to look and do the hard work of longer budgeting cycles. We're going to do the hard and long work of looking at our parking infrastructure. We're going to look at organizational restructuring. We're going to look at planning and engineering modernization, service standard implementation, trying to prepare for the massive growth that is upon us. And we're going to try and make life better for every single resident of Cobourg. We will continue to focus on making the organization relevant, effective, efficient, accessible, suitable, and able to work in the future years to come. We know that society continues to change, and if you ever look at how fast society is changing, it is changing at an exponential multiplying rate. And yet our government institutions haven't changed much since the 1960s and 70s. The math doesn't work out, folks. What you can expect going forward from this council and this staff is a recognition that we need to get control of the change that is happening and stop allowing change to be forced on us. The next slide talks about some of the seeds of change that I'd say we would plant. Very well listed. We're working through these seeds that you're going to see across the community, both from the county and from Cobourg. They're listed. We are looking at a broad spectrum housing plan. We are looking at a more holistic approach to social services. We're looking to get a hold of the infrastructure landscape, first starting out with costing and then actual planning. We look to build more efficiencies in town hall and maximizing our staff resources where appropriate by focusing their efforts on the most pressing of issues. We're not going to keep trying to do a little bit of everything halfway. We're going to be focusing on getting a job done and moving on to the next. We will look to be always improving customer service because at the end of the day, that's our job, to provide all of you with a reasonable level of customer service. And we will continue to look for efficiencies and training opportunities for our employees. You can be assured that this council has heard you and will take each and every one of your concerns about safety going forward. We read the emails, we have the phone calls, we understand what everyone is worried about or working on. The next slide talks about that we've built the foundation to be in charge of change. I told you, when you're doing foundation work, it's dirty, it's underground, most people don't see it. But if you don't have it right, everything else on top of it is not going to stand up to itself. So we planted the seeds of change. We're looking at speeding up our housing development to focus on building broad spectrum, a more holistic approach, a look to get a hold of our infrastructure, we'll look at more town hall efficiencies. But we built a foundation. You see, it would have been unethical at best and blatantly lying if when I ran for this election, I made a bunch of promises to all of you. I think it's crazy that someone with no political experience would ever have the audacity to tell this community all the things I'm going to do once I'm there. I mean, I look at it as a reverse. I can't imagine being a 22-year-old and going to an oil rig and telling all the guys on the oil rig that we're going to speed up the profession, we're going to drill it faster, I'm going to save you $3 million. I don't think I'd last very long on my first day, and yet that's what's kind of expected out of politicians. How was I to promise what I was going to do if I didn't know what needed doing? We know what we need to do now. I had to learn, but we have an incredible staff at both levels of government that have been working on this long before I ever came to power and long after I'm gone. You see, for me, integrity is everything, so I couldn't promise what I couldn't deliver. The things I'm talking about now and why we're having the year in review now is because now I can actually, with integrity, tell you the things we're working on. I mean, since I was a kid, it's been drilled into my head by my father, 32-year veteran of the Toronto Police Force. He told me that the only thing that matters at the end of the day, son, is to be able to look yourself in the mirror and know you've acted with integrity and good intent. It's the way I have always face the constant doubt. It's the way I deal with the consistent negativism and the negativity that is constantly coming in this direction. I mean, my therapist always lovingly says, just remember, Lucas, you're a good person and you are trying to do good things, and the people saying those things about you don't actually know who you are. Now, I know that integrity is the one thing that no one can take from you, and I knew that it would not be integral to make promises. I laugh when I think of that. So, I know we have a long way to go. There's a lot more foundational work that this council still has to address before any of the cracks and the breaks that you guys keep yelling at us to fix can really be addressed. One of the issues that you all want fixed and repaired, most of the issues that you all want fixed and repaired, have very little to do with the town of Cobourg or the county of Northumberland. Like, we can't address how the police are doing their job. The police are really good at being police officers. They take their orders from the Criminal Code of Canada and from the Attorney General. And so my opinion of the job the police are doing has no relevance because they're police officers, so it's their job to know the job they're supposed to do. And we have an incredible police board who are working with our police to constantly look out for the benefits of this community. And the police board also aren't allowed to get involved in operations because there are systems in place for reasons. And while There are a lot of individuals in the public that may not understand those systems. That doesn't mean they're not there and that we don't have to follow the rules within them. We can work to cover up some of the cracks from the other levels of government, but the foundational work for a lot of the problems that you want addressed relies on upper tier governments doing the foundational work on their systems. The other issue is that until we decide as a community to stop kicking the can down the road and really decide to engage in those meaningful conversations that I've been talking about, until we're willing to join from across the political spectrum about the mathematical realities that we are currently facing, that no level of government is going to be able to make lasting or impactful change. We all need to start talking about the realities of the math. Like, life is more expensive. Everyone knows this. But if life is more expensive for all of you, then life is more expensive for organizations of the government too. Gas went up for them. Employee wages have gone up for them. This community keeps telling us that they want more services, better services, more people on the phone, better transit, more staff for sustainability, more staff to deal with the front, more staff to handle planning and engineering. Okay. But you also don't want to see taxes and fees raised. I mean, it's math time, folks. The reality is that more than 85% of our budget we cannot adjust. So there's only so much we can add or take away. Therefore, when you demand more services, two options: raise taxes, or grow the tax base, or reduce spending on other services that many in this community demand and require. You don't have to trust me, but I might suggest listening, because my job for the last 25 years was to use trigonomic functions to predict the path of wellbores. My job was literally to look at math and then figure out where things were going from the math. I said a lot of things last year at budget time, and a lot of you were very upset at some of the things that I was trying to talk about. Transit, library, cuts, decisions. Again, I'm not suggesting we do any of those. I'm suggesting that we as a community start having these very difficult conversations, because we can't do more services with less money. And then the trick that I found really works well is that when people come into the office to complain, I ask them, okay, what are the 5 things you love about COVID? And then they tell me. And I said, what do you want instead? And they tell me. I say, okay, now pick 2 to go away. And they look at me. I said, well, we can't do all 5 things and what you want. So which of the 5 things you love can we go away? I do see your hand, and we will get to questions. All right, fair enough. Thank you so much. We'll pass forward to the next one, and we'll get out of the way. Thank you, ma'am. I am going to finish those, that's okay. All right. I have no problem. I was going to stress about all the hard work, but I can hear the complaints, so at this time, we will watch a video from the county, and then I will come back up and answer the questions. Understood.
I live in a place that allows me to go to work every day, but I get to come home to my kids. My daughter just graduated from McMaster University. My son, he's been with his company for about 5 years. He's already a supervisor, and they did that, I think, because they had stability. They got to go to the same school for all of public school, and I was able to take care of everything, and I was able to be at home.
We're wanting to make homes where everybody has a sense of belonging and everyone feels safe.
The people we serve are you and me. They're our sons and daughters, our aunts and uncles, our cousins, our friends, and our neighbors.
I was pushed out of a 7-year relationship with no place to go. I thought I would never be homeless.
I developed some mental health issues and physical issues. You know, it's just circumstances in my life, right?
The biggest problem is the retirement, financial problems crept up on me slowly.
I didn't think I'd be starting all over again at this age, and things do happen and you can't control everything.
Nobody expects to be in this situation, absolutely nobody.
I ended up in the women's shelter because of a bad relationship. There's nothing that goes untouched when you don't know where you're gonna go.
The Northumberland County Housing Corporation is working to grow our housing stock. We own and operate 366 units of rent geared to income housing and affordable housing.
When I first moved into the place, they were renovating it, so it was bare bones, and when you add your little touches and you put your curtains up, it turned out really nice. So now I have a nice home for me and my kids to live in.
The county workers are wonderful. When I needed something done, they were always there.
I had so many advocates looking out for me and helping me through the process.
When you get to meet somebody who may have been unhoused coming into an apartment, and you get to not only see the fruits of your labor from the renovation side, but also from the human side and the social side, that's pretty rewarding, and it's been pretty easy to stay passionate about that.
The building is well kept, and it's clean, and it's quiet, and the people were nice.
You can feel when you walk into my house that we're a home.
I'm absolutely looking forward to putting up my Christmas tree, having the Christmas music on this year, opposed to sitting in the car last year.
This is what it's like to feel happy and have a place to call your own.
If these programs didn't exist, to be honest, I'm not even sure if I would still be alive today.
When people are housed and they're feeling secure, right, then they are proud to call these buildings home and proud to live in these communities.
Tenants create their own communities of support and networks that look after each other.
I'm lucky to live in a community that has welcoming arms.
It's allowed me to recover.
It means the absolute world to me.
In order for us to reach our growth goals at the NCHC and at the county, we're going to need all levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal, working together to fund, finance, and find land in order to continue to grow our housing stock for the future.
We're not just building houses, we're building homes and building futures.
All right, so at this time, I guess we will go right into questions, as that was always wanted. So if anyone would like to come up to the mic, let's get started, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi there, my name is Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
So I totally acknowledge exactly what you said. 95% of the shit that we're complaining about is stuff that you and your council has no control over. But the one thing that you guys do have control over is getting us in contact with the correct people. And sending emails to our MPP is not doing anything. So what can we do to all come together and then come to you guys and we're all standing behind you so we're actually getting something done?
Thank you. I think instead of like getting, what do you want to get done? I think that's I'm going to ask a follow-up question, because what is it you're talking about? Because that depends.
No, I'm not on camera. I think it's pretty obvious. We kind of want to get the encampment under control, and we don't want to have this situation because it's not about housing. It's not about that video at all. It's about drugs. And let's face it, these guys can't do anything about this. This is our federal government that has allowed the drug problem to be this way. This is made normal. To be able to shoot up in the middle of the street is normal in our world, and that is bullshit. That is not a way of living.
Fair enough. Thank you. I understand your frustration, and I appreciate it. I'm not going to really engage in commenting against federal policies. What I will do is talk about Brookside. I know a lot of you, that's the number one concern right now. I've been very clear. Why are we not doing more about the encampment is the number one question that we get asked every single day. So I'm going to show you what our actual media release says, and then we're going to break it down away from legalese. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to be very clear. Anything I say can be used against this corporation legally. There are people who will be watching to understand and to take notes of what I say. And sometimes being the leader means knowing when to take the abuse for not saying the right things that you want to hear. And I need everyone to understand that that's a decision that we sometimes have to make as council. Without further ado, let's talk. So property owners, I'm not going to read the legalese, you've all read it before, but what this basically means is that if you have a party on your land, on your property, you're not allowed to let someone drive home drunk. That's what this is talking about. It's talking about that if you have a pool, your job is to ensure the safety of those who swim in it. That's what this legalese is talking about. Just so we're clear with what we're saying to our province. The next thing. This is talking about property standard bylaw. Now, bylaw reset. That's what we are allowed to do. That's the most that we are allowed to do, is enforce our bylaws, which set standards for the maintenance and the occupancy of properties within the town. So, that's why we are able to evict individuals from our properties. Next, please. This is the highlight, and this is the important thing that we need to understand. An act is an instrument that records a fact, or something that has been said or done or agreed to, okay? So we have lots of acts in government. Acts generally take the form of legal instruments that either prove something or outline responsibility. So like we have the Municipal Act. That's what gives us the authority to make bylaws. It's an act. Therefore, as this statement indicates, the province, who, remember, creates our existence. We aren't a level of government, ladies and gentlemen. We are a statute of creation by the province. They, through writing laws, create the county, and through writing laws, create Cobourg. That's why the province can, with a simple change of a law, change the nature of our government. Therefore, as this statement indicates, the province has the unique ability to either make themselves responsible or not by passing certain acts. So, because the Brookside property is owned by the province, this means that some legislation and municipal bylaws that apply to regular property owners and other legislation and bylaws do not. In addition to this fact, the town of Cobourg's various departments must fully and responsibly investigate property-related complaints within their jurisdiction before an appropriate course of action is decided upon. Please understand that I can use the things I say against us, and that sometimes when you are in a position of leadership and knowledge, the job is to sit there and do the right thing, not the easy thing. I would love to stand up here and explain in great detail all that is going on behind the scenes, all of the strategy, all of the thoughts, all of the consultations, all of the meetings, the work, the hours of time and dedication that this staff and this council is putting towards a resolution for this community. And I know you want answers, and they will be available at a time. But at this present time, I need the community to understand that don't listen to what I'm saying. Look at what has been done. Look at what has been done in the last year. We've had encampments on town land that have been closed. We have encampments at county land that have been closed. This community continues to enforce all of its bylaws as we are able to do. This community has seen that several properties in our community are no longer in operation. Look at the actions and forecast the way this community is going, ladies and gentlemen. Next question.
I'm Chloe, and since this is the Mayor's Town Hall, mine are more directed to you and your council. And I'm wondering if you actually fully believe 100% that all of your council is on the same page, because I will beg to differ on that one. But from what I've heard you say tonight, it sounds more like you are claiming responsibility for things that are being done within different organizations within the community and not just town council. So where are you getting kind of the statistics or the information where you're claiming about the housing and about being able to change different properties and things like that, and closing 4 properties in Coburg, you just added to the encampment.
That's an interesting thought. I'm not one for burying problems in basements. I'm not one for allowing individuals who prey upon other vulnerable individuals to operate in closed doors. I don't stand by, and our staff doesn't stand by, and our council doesn't stand by when individuals are living in unsanitary, unhealthy conditions.
Like the encampment.
That's right, like the encampment. But again, the encampment is not legal. Neither was the house they were living in.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're gonna go, but the difference is that when we know about
Let's go to
the
your
problem-
house and see what your fucking house looks like.
Mr. Nealon,
Yeah.
there's no need, sir. We
There's
can
no
go back-
problem with my house. They closed it. They manufactured a leaky basement, which will be addressed.
We're gonna go in order.
Yeah.
But I was answering the last question.
Yeah, your facts are shit. Come down and see me sometime, maybe. Come on down.
So I understand the facts are facts. I'm not sitting up here. The housing starts, they have to go through our planning department. That's where I'm getting the facts. If you come to the housing conference that we had, I think 2 weeks ago, these aren't my stats. You can talk to the professionals. See, that's the thing about being mayor, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not the professional. I'm the elected person. There are professionals, hundreds of them, that work for our corporation. I'm not the one making decisions on our social services. We have incredible professionals who run our social service department, who are constantly educating me on the policies, the standards, what's being done. So my facts are coming from the professionals that I listen to and that I work alongside of. I'm not a professional in social service, and I don't need to be. That's not the job of a mayor. We were going to get into it. I moved on. That's fine. But the job of the mayor is I'm one of 7 people. And other than getting to stand up here in front of you and share meetings, that's about the extent of the power of the mayor. I get to be a leader and a full-time person. I'm very proud to be that. And I get a little bit more access to staff and knowledge. But most of my job is educating and making sure that anything I'm learning is being passed on to council, because together we're making those decisions. And so you made a point about us not being on the same page. You don't want us all on the same page. That's not a good discussion. That's not a thorough and thoughtful process. You want council to have different positions and different perspectives and different priorities, and you want that friction. The difference is we want a friction that works in collaboration with understanding and compromise. And while I'm not going to speak to other councils, I'm incredibly proud of how this council has come together. It's not like we agree on most things, but we are working together in a professional manner. We're doing so with honor and integrity, and we're making sure we're staying the heck out of operations. Because that's not what council's job is. And everyone has to understand this. The mayor and the council are actually prohibited from being engaged in operations. Our job is to set policy. Our job is to learn as much information as we can to make the decisions. And it's insane to actually understand what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. I have a degree in political science. I'm reading like 20, 25 hours a week. I'm meeting with professionals who've been doing their job for 20 years and getting briefing notes so that I can understand. I mean, some of these council packages are in the 1,000 pages or more, and we're reading that every week. To know what's actually going on takes a lot of work. And so that's our job. Our job isn't to make the social service delivery and to make the decisions. Our job is to make sure we know what's going on. Do the things that I was talking about, which is set policy and do groundwork. But there's the answer. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Dora.
Hi, Dora.
This is really about your new governance model. Okay, under this new model, you will be not meeting during July and August, as in taking 2 months off from governance. Can you explain the rationale behind that decision?
Yeah, of course. So that's pretty standard amongst municipalities. You see, when we have our staff, we need to be able to organize our staff to be able to take their vacation days. What many of you may not realize is that at one point, this corporation had millions of dollars in liability because of vacation days that had been banked because we weren't shutting down the government during the summer, which was causing our employees to never have time off, which is allowing them to carry days over. And so good governance and good fiscal management states that you can't sit with millions of dollars of banked vacation days on a government debt. So not this council, previous council and this council have been working through that. We've changed policies so that you can't bank debt. But when you look at the summer vacation, there's a couple of things. One, we can always call special meetings if we need to. If there's something of priority or immediacy, those meetings can happen. Two, we set policies, so what's going to happen under the new governance model is our directors are going to have to make sure they're a lot more organized. And that's not a bad thing to ask of our staff. Guys, we shouldn't have to be doing things every single month because you should be planning out the next 6 months of work effectively and efficiently. And if you've done that, then we can get the meetings done before the summertime and make sure we've approved what needs approved. You see, that's the thing. When we make a decision at council, sometimes it takes 2 and 3 years for that decision to come to fruition. And that's not because the staff aren't doing their job, it's because some of the things we're doing are years of work and progress. So the 2 months, I understand, but it's not that the staff are getting the 2 months off, and it's not like we're not going to be doing the reading and the work. But what we're doing is actually creating an opportunity for our staff to take the vacation that they deserve. These are just answers. By all means.
Hello, my name's Eric. I'm talking about the stormwater. So I received a bill in the mail for $318 extra on my hydro bill. And I'm expected to receive 2 more payments of the same amount. So that's $1,000 a year for my family. My 2.5 acres of property is mostly grass, gardens, and wooded area. And about a third of my property is floodplain. As Big Town Creek runs through it. So my property is not generating much stormwater. Even worse, as I've talked to my neighbors, or as my wife has talked to our neighbors, we realized that their bills range from $1,000 to up to $15,000 per year. That's just outrageous. There was apparently a consultation process, but I work shift work, my wife works long hours, so we didn't get to any of that. But the GRCA also did seem to know about this as the letter last night. So, I mean, they run the property for you guys and they didn't know about it. So most of these charges go against things in the pamphlet I would receive. That funding will be distribute these proportionally among property types that are estimated to produce more stormwater runoff. The average homeowner was paying $150 per year in the taxes, and supposedly this will reduce it by 50%. But up to my bill seems to be about 650% extra. So my question is, can we put a cap on this right now until we figure out a better way to do this?
I understand, and guys, the timing's terrible for stormwater. Let's call it what it is. It's right at Christmas time. I'm also not going to say that there haven't been mistakes in billing. We're working through the mistakes. This is a brand new fee that's been added, so there are going to be a few mistakes as we work the kinks out.
Can we put a cap on it until then?
No, and I'll explain why, sir. It's not my decision, it's the decision of council. First of all, I want to state that, but I'm very hopeful that council won't, because I can walk you through the real simple answer that Ontario Regulation 588, the Ontario Regulation Government, says that we have asset management planning for municipal infrastructure, so we're legally obliged to now do this. So we had to conduct an asset management plan that accounts for all owned infrastructure, its condition, its life cycle, its replacement value, and we had to prepare a 10-year financial plan to understand the full costs and then plan how we're going to pay for them. The town conducted this study over a 1.5 year, and we completed the asset management plan for stormwater in April 2022. Public consultation was not a one and done. Notices were being published for the final presentation in May, but we had dates in November 2021, June 2022, May 2022, on the 26th. The long-term financial plan for a full cost recovery program was then adopted in the previous term of council. This council has stood by that decision. I'm going to walk you reason through. The asset management said that we were only contributing $400,000 a year to our asset management plan. That's really important to that number, $400,000. Yet we have a $70 million infrastructure. So we were told that we needed to save up $1.6 million a year to start paying for this. Now, if I added, or if this previous council had added $1.2 million to your property taxes, that would have been a 6 to 8% overnight jump. But what's really important, and this is, I understand, I heard how much to have that much of a bill, so that means you're sitting on several acres within the limits of Cobourg. Okay, that's important to remember. Had this rate structure not been implemented, landowners with high property assessments, not land space, but how much your property was worth, would be paying more in comparison to the industrial or commercial properties. I'm talking big box retailers here with massive parking lots. Remember, residential landowners make up to 79% of our tax base. But the stormwater rate structure reduces the residential collection to 32%. Now, with several acres in the town of Cobourg, yes sir, it is more expensive for you. We did have different categories. There are categories of grass versus concrete, and we are working through this. Again, this is the first introduction of a new fee. There are going to be upgrades, and we are going to be working through this. But when you say, are we going to put a cap on it, the cap is where it's set, $1.6 million. And then that was divided equally amongst the size and plot of your land. Because remember folks, it's not a fee for the use of the stormwater, it's a fee for the whole system that was then divided equally amongst the people. Again, I'm not saying the answer is the one you're going to like, I'm saying that these are the answers. Now, did you have another question?
To be honest, I really don't feel like you answered my question. So I asked what we can do as a community to come together, to come to the right level of government, to address drugs, to address the homelessness, to address the crime, because again, I know you don't have control of the police force, but I've made 2 personal phone calls to the police and never gotten a return phone call. So my experience is that if it's not big, and for some of the things I've read on Facebook of people being told to board up their windows because people are living in their backyards, like I know you don't have control over this, but where do we go in order to get this addressed? We have to do something.
Of course, it depends on which level and which problem. So you want to talk about healthcare dollars, you want to talk about healthcare, mental health, that's the province. If you want to talk about crime and the criminal code, that's the feds. If you want to talk about it, we can. But when you say when you're talking about drugs, well, then that has to be at the federal level. And so you can talk, we have representatives of our MPP and our MP here today. I've spoken to Mr. Lawrence on several occasions. He's very much on board with a lot of the views I'm hearing here tonight. So again, you can write to them all you want, but they're not in a position of power. So if you're asking what you can do, well, you can write letters, you can write emails. Know that we're doing that as well. It's not like we're not meeting with the different levels of government. That is part and parcel of working with our levels. The county is constantly meeting with the province. And our council is constantly interacting with them as well. Again, when you're talking about Brookside, folks, we're talking about IO. IO is a separate organization that is not having direct oversight by the provincial government. So as many letters as you want to send to our MPP, it's not going to affect because there's specific system regulations that prevent political oversight of an economic branch of the province. We don't want our politicians controlling multi-billion-dollar industries. What we want is an arm's length group, and that's for a reason. So there's no one you can write except IO.
Okay, so I don't know about all of you, but writing letters has done jack shit for anything, so that's my experience. I mean, like, us Canadians seem to be very, very nice and very politically correct, whereas if this was in Europe, we would just be protesting the damn streets until it was done with. So is this what needs to happen? Like, do I need to talk to someone over there about this? Because I just feel like I get that you don't have control, but I also, and I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and I understand that, but I also don't see how this is ever going to get sorted out.
Well, I'm going to just cut you off, and I don't mean to, like, what you're pontificating about and what you're talking about, I can't change your outlook on the world. And the reality is what I'm hearing is a lot of negative viewpoints. I can't fix that for you. You see, when I look into our community, I feel blessed to live there because I'm not in Peterborough, I'm not in Oshawa, and I'm not in Scarborough. You see, when I went to India and I got the opportunity to see real poverty, where people are just dead in the streets, I came home with a new perspective. So I'm not saying that you don't have your problems, I'm not dismissing them, but at the end of the day, your opportunity to look for the negative or your opportunity to look for the positive is unfortunately your choice. And right, and everyone in every community in Canada has those same problems now. That's a great answer. So we're going to hold off on the crowd, and instead I'm going. Oh, sorry. Back up. Thank you, Brian. Good. Back up. Thank you, sir. We're actually going to go to Jeff here, and then I'm going to go to one from Kara, if that's okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll give you one that actually you can do something about. Cobourg residents are increasingly concerned with public drug use paraphernalia and the paraphernalia that gets left behind in bus stops, playgrounds, and our public parks, putting our community and children at risk every single day. With the rules of the Cobourg Library being recently updated, selling, using, and being under the influence of drugs is not permitted on library property, and it results in a 6-month ban. Not only that, 17 days late, but either way, Cobourg Police released that there's been multiple vandalisms at bus shelters as well. So, will you, the mayor, the town of Cobourg, and your council consider following suit and put forward a motion to ban selling, using, or being under the influence of drugs in any public bus shelter, park, or playground using municipal bylaw services to enforce these rules?
No, Jeff, I think that's a great suggestion. I'll let everyone know there's a reason this is being recorded. We are taking these questions. If you don't get a chance to answer your question, let us know. We will get it recorded. Jeff, that's not a bad idea, and it's not something I'm against. But again, that's something that has to be discussed, discovered, and looked at the final ramifications. But I don't have a personal problem with that, no, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Jeff. I'm going to just go for one for the pre-selected ones. I can go back and forth. I'm not avoiding you. We're just going to go with a pre-selected one.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. So just going to a pre-submitted question. This one is regarding the budget. During your campaign, you committed to a zero tax increase budget. This week, we hear that the target is 6% and that you are planning to actually increase taxpayer-funded headcount. Why are no departments tasked with significantly reducing costs as part of their KPIs as done within businesses? I voted for you assuming you would be honest and introduce a cost-oriented business mindset. I am sorely disappointed and very angry to learn you are just another bureaucrat, treating taxpayers as sources of endless funding and the budget process as a blank check.
Thank you, Kara, for picking a nice, easy one. Let's call it what it is. There's no promises of a zero tax increase. What I said is I'd love to work and get us to a 0% tax increase. I said that not knowing the situation I was walking into, and I think that's important. We talked about it. We talked about not having enough tax increases during a period of massive inflation. We talked about adding positions and playing accounting where we put positions at the end of the year, so we only have small amounts to carry to the next year. We talk about a variety of tactics that previous councils have used to sort of muddy the waters. And this isn't calling them out, this is what we do, because the reality is, if you don't want tax increases, tell me where we're gonna start cutting. I'm up for it. I've walked into corporations and done a 50% head count immediately on day one. It's not fun, but it can be done. And I'm not against that. But ladies and gentlemen, if you read the emails I get, no one actually wants to cut services. If you read the emails I get, it's all about more and more wants. You want more police, we want more fire protection, we want better transit, we want more sustainability, we want more people to answer phones, we want better customer service. The other thing I read, I just heard in that, was why aren't we being tasked to find savings in our departments? That's actually what I did when I first walked in the door. And what I found is actually the opposite. That for the last 20 years, this community has elected incredibly responsible and incredibly frugal individuals. And for many years, council after council has been cutting the fat, reducing, trimming, doing without, not hiring a position and getting them to do it off the corner of their desk. It's a strategy. It's a good strategy if you don't want to grow. It's a good strategy if you want to keep smaller. And it was working. But this community has drastically changed. No longer is it a small rural town. We have a lot of people coming from major cities coming here who are demanding more and more and more services. So we are elected to sort of do what the people would like. And the problem is when we keep hearing from the public that you want us to do more and more and more, but you want us to spend less and less and less, it presents a real difficult logistical situation. So if the community truly wants to have zero taxes, we can easily do that. But the ramifications of that decision are going to be a drastic slashing of services provided to this community. Because there are no more places to cut in some departments. Ladies and gentlemen, we are a $30 million organization. And in a few of our departments, if we were to lose one staff member, we'd be in a lot of trouble. That's crazy. And that's because for years and years and years, this community has tried to do without growth. And that's not a good or a bad thing. It's just the way it is. I spend no time looking back. All I'm doing is looking forward. And there's no point in complaining about the problems we had. It's about addressing the problems we're dealing with right now. And so right now, we're faced with a very difficult economic time. That question nailed it up. That's okay. They're allowed to be disappointed. The reality is that we have decisions to make, and are we listening to the community? We're doing that. But does the community want the consequences of listening to them? Well, no, they don't. But again, it's a math problem.
Actually, I think you first, sir. So Lucas, my name's Alan. So for some of the people that are here, they know who I am. CEO Jennifer Moore knows me quite well. I sit on an Ag Advisory Committee. Previous gentleman talked about the stormwater management fees. There are several several taxpayers in the municipality of Cobourg, especially in the northeast, and there's some on the northwest, that don't have sewers. They have their stormwater more or less goes into some creeks, established ditches that the town of Cobourg owns, and of course those road ditches are maintained by lawnmowers, backhoes, whatever. Most of it mainly lawnmowers. One of the previous gentlemen said that his bill was going to be over $1,000. I know of at least three taxpayers that their bill is almost $30,000. Stormwater management, they have their own creeks running through their property, and those creeks go right down to Lake Ontario. The town of Cobourg doesn't maintain those creeks. and that's the Ganaraski Conservation Authority. I've gotten some of my information. I had a conversation with the previous councillor. So I would, and I have just a little bit of a tip here. There's 5 cities in the province of Ontario that are adopting and working on stormwater management fees. Hamilton, Mississauga, Richmond Hill, Brampton, and London. Right now, there's no provincial policy statement on stormwater management when it comes to municipalities. And you, and along with the other 5 cities, are writing some stuff that's unknown right now.
Yeah, no, we're definitely doing creative work right now. We're definitely working on getting ahead of problems before we're stuck with them.
So the question I have is, so these residents that are in the fringe parts of the municipality, why do they have to fund the stormwater management fees when they have no benefit to it? They have trees, they have lawns, they have gardens. And I've had the conversation and stuff with one of the councillors, and I respect him quite well. I've worked with him in the past. The drainage coefficients that are put in place, we can't argue those because they're just approximations. So, you know, and with Lakefront Utilities handing out the bills, there's a lot of people that can't afford those bills going towards Christmas, let alone they have to start that process all over again next year.
I'll get right into it. The rate is not a user fee. The stormwater is not a user fee. It's not like water and wastewater. That's part of the problem, is that the understanding around this is that it's not a user fee. It's actually a full cost recovery rate plan, so that we're never in a deficit with this infrastructure. You see, what we talked about is we're trying to do the right thing, and that's not always the most popular thing. This is an actual appropriate decision. And you're right, we're 1 of 5, because again, we are setting the standard. We are moving ahead with it. It's going to be forced upon us anyways. And so we're getting ahead of it, so that you're right, we're working through the kinks. You're right, the coefficients. There's maybe a when we have the staff, do you know how much extra work it would be to do to actually start taking into account that kind of detailed orientation? And so the town infrastructure controls, treats, collects stormwater to mitigate flooding and to allow property owners to travel the roads. It's a fee to the whole town. It's not a fee to how much you use the stormwater. And I understand, if you own 30 and 40 acres in Cobourg, yeah, that's going to be expensive. And we have to actually look at why that's expensive. Because eventually what's going to happen with those lands? They're going to be developed. And when those lands are finally developed, what's the taxpayer going to have to pay them to develop the stormwater fees and the stormwater systems? And so it's actually an incredibly equitable way. I'll definitely get you a chance. It's an equitable way. And I get it. It's expensive. But owning 30 acres of land in a city center is expensive. And just because we haven't charged appropriately in the past doesn't mean that charging appropriately now is the wrong thing to do. It's actually a few years late, and we're finally getting to it. And there's never going to be a good time for this fee to get launched. But pushing it down the road is not what this council's about. We're actually about making the right decisions for the right reasons, even when it's the most unpopular thing to do.
Can I say something, Lucas? I think probably you need to maybe take a little bit of time and maybe a little bit of telephone calls or emails to those 5 major city centers on seeing how they deal with it. And I just went for a quick drive on the weekend. There's about 60 to 70 people that don't benefit from stormwater management through sewers and pipes. And a lot of that has happened around the subdivision on King Street at the east end, and also on the north side of Elgin Street. So, and I've had these conversations and stuff with several people across the province in the last week about this. So, you know, I don't think those 60 or 70 people that own 2, 10, 190 acres, and there's several of those, and there are some key people in this municipality that own some of that. And they have creeks, running down through their property that the stormwater goes to, and it doesn't go to the ditches.
Again, it doesn't have to. That's, you keep trying to argue with me that it doesn't matter. It's a fee that's equitably distributed. And sir, I know there's powerful people that are really upset. Trust me, I'm feeling the pressure. But just because people with power, influence, and money are pressuring us to do something different doesn't mean that we're going to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, doing the right thing is doing the right thing, always and forever. That's not debatable. And if you don't like the right thing, or the right thing is disaffecting you more, I'm sorry. I can't sleep with myself at night not funding future generations of people in Cobourg. My job is to actually make sure we're making the right decisions for the future, or as the best of the decisions we can with the information we have.
Hi, I'm Katie.
Hi, Katie.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us tonight. So, about the encampment again, so brace ourselves. I was wondering, and I know that there's not much, as you expressed, that we can do about Brookside, but I was wondering if the mayor's office, you personally, have reached out to any NGOs or organizations that could come in and possibly help these people through the winter months with clothing, food, medicine, warming centers.
No, I haven't.
Is that something that the mayor's office would be interested in?
Yeah, no, you see, that's the thing, is that I have checked in with our community social services. We have an entire team of professionals at the county who are checking in on those individuals on a regular basis. There are spaces in our shelter system available on a regular and constant basis. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot force people to get help.
Can we bring the help to them?
No, ma'am, because it's an illegal encampment. And
Right.
so if people want to access
No, but I'm
services...
not in the mayor's office. I'm saying, have you reached out to organizations, non-governmental organizations, who could bring the help to them?
Again, our social service experts are aware of the situation, and what I do is I let the professionals do what professionals do. If I thought me calling an NGO would help, I'd happily do that. But again, I am an elected representative that sets policy, not that does operations. And it's really, really clear on where my lines are supposed to be. And so am I working with my county partners? All the time. Does Cobourg, the county, and the province have regular conversations? Of course they do. But you're asking if I'm reaching out to NGOs? Well, no, I'm working on running a community, not taking care of 21 individuals. There are professionals. No, there are 21 individuals, 23, you call them what you are, who continually refuse service, who continually refuse the help that's offered. Why am I going to work and continue to try and force them to get help when they are not choosing to get help themselves? I have a lot of other work to do. We have a lot of other citizens. You see, poverty and homelessness is not those 21 people. There are lots and lots of people around our county that need help, assistance, and service, and who are willing to work and contribute and build their life up. And so we want to focus and continue working with all of these individuals to make sure that they are bettering their life and place. But homelessness, mental health, and addiction are not centralized to those 23 individuals. And so yes, I'm working with my professionals, I'm reaching out to the people that I can, but at the end of the day, I'm focusing on trying to do what's right for this entire community, not 21 people. All right, so I gotta stay back here, right? You wanna go to one more here, Kara, and then we'll go back to the mics?
The next one is about transit. What is going to be done to improve the lacking transit system?
Well, that's, again, a very loaded question that deserves a very thorough conversation. I think if you look at the government subsidies of our transportation, we're looking at about $1.5 million annually. Again, the solution to our transit system is more money if you want to fix it. If you want to offer more rides or fixed route, it's more money. The question is the community willing to spend more on taxes? I'm hearing tonight stormwater fees. Well, stormwater fees are to protect flooding and our water source. And we're actually building our infrastructure. And everyone wants me to put a cap on that. So if we want to fix our transit, are we going to have support for more funding for our transit? Again, that's not a question I alone can answer. There are professionals who know how to fix transit. But again, is this community ready to spend the money that's required to fix that transit? I don't know if we're ready to have that conversation, because if you even mention it, God forbid we ever look at transit that we're not spending more on. So you ask me what I would do to fix it, well, I would make sure the community's ready to fix it. And when I reach out to the community, I don't hear from the majority of the community that they want us to spend more money fixing the situation. I guess we'll go over here.
Hi, my name's Nicole.
Nicole.
Hi. So this is about the stormwater charge, of course. So I'm a little confused on a lot of things here, so if it's a little all over the place, I apologize. So you're saying that you've got this one charge, it's based on the size of your property. So it doesn't matter that, we can't build on it, you're saying that those people who have 30 acres, that if they sell it, they're paying for those future people that might buy it. And this is from what I understand, I might be wrong, that if I've got property that I can't build on and I'm being charged $1,200 for this, all my runoff goes not there, it goes into the ground, it's all green, it's all grass. And like I said, I can't build on it, I can't expand on it. CN and CP are on both sides of me. The amount of oil, because what you have on your website says it's because of pavement, because of what is it?
Yeah, all the different
Chemicals that
coefficients.
come off, and all that stuff that comes off. But what about the stuff that comes off of the CN and CP off their rails? So are they paying for their space? Are they paying more because more comes off? Or
Again.
because, like, what's...
So what we're going to do is we're going to go back again. It's not appropriate that condo people who have very small plots of land are paying a disproportional amount. I understand that your large property has areas that you can't build on. But the reality is that when we look at the most equitable way to do this, this is the way it works. Now, for people with large property holdings, it doesn't feel that equitable. But the reality is that if you look at it from a 20,000 resident perspective, it is the most equitable. And unfortunately, because you have a large piece of property, you have a higher fee. There are options. Not living on such a large piece of property that costs so much money.
Oh, okay, so I'm just going to give up my privacy.
No, I didn't say that, ma'am. What I said is this.
2.5 acres of...
Ma'am, I can't afford to live in Singapore. I can't afford to live in London, and I can't afford to live in Coburg if we're really honest about it.
I can't either anymore.
Right, and so the reality is I give sacrifices, and I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Coburg. And I'm not saying that that's a sacrifice that you have to make, but we all have our individual choices and our responsibilities, and I can't decide for you what the right decision is. What I can decide is that the right decision for us is to make sure we're funding our asset management plan.
So are you saying to that gentleman earlier, are you going to revisit this stormwater charge?
No, what
when
I'm
you
saying is
see
we're
things
gonna-
to, like,
No.
change things around?
No, what I'm saying is we have a 1.6 million fee to collect every year.
Yes.
And that it is going to be a process, that there will be mistakes, there will be lands that we have to reassess with impact. Whenever you're setting up a new system, there will be corrections as we move along in the implementation of this system. But in terms of the dollar amounts and the equitable way of dividing it, I don't see a big change coming. Now, what I did say is that there are always ways to modify it. But again, those ways to modify it would require more staffing. This is part and parcel of, we've got the best system we could that is the most equitable that we could find, and then we divided it based on land holdings.
Then can you answer that email that I sent you probably last week when I asked you all of this?
By all means.
So I'll be looking forward to that in the next week or so?
No ma'am, I'm sitting on probably, no ma'am, I'm sitting on approximately, in my to respond folder as of this morning, about 784 emails.
So the email I sent specifically to the stormwater.ca.
Then our directors are much better and much more
So
adept at
that
responding to their emails than I am.
would be a couple of weeks then?
I'm not going to give you a quote. What I'm going to say is that we're going to get back to you. You're not just the only one who's sending emails. And it's not that yours isn't important. I want to be very clear. I wish I had an ability to get back to every email the day I have. But again, it is what it is. Thank you. For you, sir. And then we'll go back to you, Garrett. Okay.
Hi,
Hello.
My name's Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
My sister and I own a parcel of land on the northeast segment of town. It's about 90 acres. About 60 acres are farmable, and the other 30 acres are mostly cedar trees and a creek. We're facing an increase from just less than $2,000 a year to $15,000 a year. And I don't have any real question about that other than a comment that I think it's absolutely unprecedented for any level of government to try and impose an 800% increase in 1 year. In addition, I would say that this charge amounts to $250 an acre of farmable land, and I'm quite sure that you're aware that most farmers work on very slim margins or negative margins for some years, and this will make any kind of farm operation totally untenable. And I'm wondering if that's what you really truly intended. I can't imagine that.
No, that's not what's intended. Again, it's not like we're trying to have some conspiracy theory. We stepped into a problem that was discovered. There was an underfunding of our infrastructure, and so we developed the most equitable solution for it. And I understand that with a large holding of land, it doesn't feel that way. But again, when you look at the actual stats, is that what we're not doing is burdening single-parent families. We're not burdening people in condos, because the majority of Cobourg residents aren't seeing a massive increase. You know who is seeing a massive increase? Big box retailers. And if you think your increase is bad, you should see if you have a parking lot that size. Because that's where the majority of these fees are coming from, ladies and gentlemen. And it is unfortunate that there are individuals in our city, in our town, that have large farms that this is disproportionately affecting. But at the end of the day, there's not really a more equitable way to do this. And if any discounts that you're going to have are going to end up on the property taxes of the other residents.
I beg to differ. I do agree that the area of property needs to be taken into account, and a larger area should pay proportionately more. And I agree that there needs to be different coefficients applied for different runoffs. But I would also point out that a 50 cubic meter flood of water on King Street is totally different from the 50 cubic meter flood of water in what I own, which is mostly a swamp.
Again, you're getting
and I don't see that that's equitable. And I would point out that many other municipalities either charge nothing
they
for
put
the
it through their
farmland.
property taxes. That's the other thing, folks, is that we didn't have to charge this fee. We could have just put it through property taxes, and then your fee wouldn't have gone up as much. Everyone else's would have. And I think that's part of the thing, is that we spoke about this in the presentation. Any decision we make, even the best ones, you're still going to have 30 to 40% of the population that don't like it. I get it. It's not fun to make these decisions. It's that's our job. That's what we were elected to do. It's not like we enjoy going, oh, I can't wait to make sure all of these residents in Cobourg have to pay more. What our job is to do is to make the difficult decisions necessary for the betterment of this community. And I am truly sorry that it is happening, but at the end of the day, sir, we've made a decision that we have to in order to move along a problem.
So you're saying that farmers cannot farm?
No, that's not what I'm saying, sir.
Well,
I don't
it
like
is.
it. Okay, we're going to move on to a question from Eric. Thank you so much.
This next question is regarding parking. It is difficult for those with accessible parking passes to pay for parking at the machines. These machines are not conveniently located. This past winter, the lack of snow removal around the curbs and the machines prevented use of the allotted spaces. Please make accessible parking free in any spot. Why can't Cobourg have the same as Port Hope?
Noted, thank you. That will definitely be registered about the request for replacing Port Hope. Parking, it's an issue, it's a big one. I think it was on these seeds of change. It is not just you that want it worked on. Several members of council have already spoken to this. There is a study coming back that was commissioned that will be coming back in either January or February that will look at parking as a whole in Coburg. The reality is that every single one of us wants us to get a simple, basic parking scheme. It's not working the one we have. And I think that this council will be seeing some movement on parking moving forward. While we're talking about parking, let's also address the $160 tickets that I get all the emails about. Ladies and gentlemen, our fee for the day is $40. We didn't just indiscriminately come up with a number of $160 that's based on scientific data. What we found, and this isn't me saying it, this is what the stats say, is that when you have a fine that is 4 times more than the fee it costs, you have an 80+% of people paying the appropriate fine, which reduces our staff having to go around and ticket people. If you have to pay a $40 fee and the fine is $60, we know that every single person in this room is going to take that chance. If that's the case, then we are having to pay more bylaw officers to go around to enforce parking. Again, these decisions that we make aren't made in isolation just because we think that it's the right thing to do. The research is put into every decision that's made, and when we're setting the fines for these parkings based on an increase, because we're trying to reduce taxes by not having the taxpayers have to pay for the cleanup every single day on the beach, that's part and parcel of what we did. So, great question. It is what it is, and I'm not sure who was first, if it was Warren. All right, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Warren. I just want to take a moment to thank all the councilors that are here just for what they do. If you go to council meetings or if you watch on Zoom, I've been doing it for 12 years. The job is an incredibly tough job, mostly thankless, and 40% of the time, or on every decision you make, 40% of the people think you're either incompetent or just plain wrong. So anyway, I've got to take a moment to thank them. My question is about housing, homeless, and the Golden Plow. A number of years ago, I'm not sure how many, the decision was made to build a wonderful new Golden Plow long-term care home and put it very close to the existing one. And the existing one would stay, and the plan was to demolish the current one when the new one was ready to go. And one thing that's changed is back when that decision was made, I think the housing and the homeless and the camp questions were nothing like they are now in terms of importance to the community. And so, but even without that, people wondered, can't the existing Golden Plow be used? It's fully functioning every day. So anyway, last night I went to council because I saw there was a motion on there by one of the councilors to, in fact, revisit and re-examine the question of could the current building or some of it be used to help with this current nightmare of a problem around affordable housing, homeless, and the camps. And I went to the council meeting forgetting the protocol about what would happen because I wanted to hear the pros and cons. And so the motion was made and the vote was taken, and it was a split decision, 50-50. One counselor was absent though, so that changes it with 7 people. And one counselor said they were not opposed to holding the demolition, but it was a county decision, not a town decision. And that's why they were voting no. So it still came out a 50-50 vote, but I believe that the protocol is if it's 50-50, it doesn't pass. But what I'd hoped to hear was, because I don't know what the right answer is on that, but what I was hoping to hear was the reasons that the people who voted against it did. And that didn't happen because of the protocol, but you were one of the people who voted against it. And so if you could, I just wanted to know the reasons.
We're just waiting for Mike. I'll do one better. I'll talk about the actual demolition of the Golden Plow, the old one for the new one. So one of the councilors I talked about earlier, I said, I went around and I talked to all the councillors and I tried to figure out what was important to one of them. And that councillor that we're talking about, she made it very clear that she wanted to know about this. So that's what I did from day one is I went digging. And I worked with the county and I started to ask the kind of questions of the county. And what we're doing is we're looking at a decision that was made 13 years ago. Now, have things changed since then? Of course they have. Is it a different situation? Yes, it is, sir. No one's doubting that. But the reality is even if it was the right or the wrong decision 13 years ago, since that decision has been made, there has been 13 years of decisions based on that decision. And so we're talking about millions of dollars in contracts. We're talking about new site plans. We're talking about traffic studies. We're talking about thousands upon thousands upon thousands of staff hours to come to the current plan, the new site, and the new structure, and the new development. Now, am I saying it was the right decision or the wrong decision? I don't know, because I wasn't a member of the council when those decisions were made. But what I can tell you is that, okay, so Cobourg passes a motion to go and ask questions. The questions are going to be answered, but it doesn't really, at the end of the day, affect anything. Why? Because the current plans would need a majority of county council to even consider that. And the reality is that county council knows that at this point in time, trying to re-guess a decision 14 years ago or 13 years ago doesn't make economical sense. And even if there are some savings, which again, aren't proven, it would cost money, resources, and times to even find out if it's the right decision or the wrong decision. And then we lose all of the advantages of the current plan. You see, in the current plan, the reason everything was developed the way it was is to create another parcel of land so that in the future, we have more land to develop on. So that if there is an expansion, if there is another county building, if there is something else, that we now have an actual adequate parcel that can do it. Further, the road structure through our road design actually goes through where that old building was. And this old building has built with timber, it was built with concrete, it was built with steel. There are 4 different building components. It's not so easy to just go in and retrofit a building. Further decisions have been made over the last 10 years based on the fact it was being demolished. So like the air conditioning units are removable, things like that. Every decision since that decision that has been made has been the right decision. I'm not saying it was the wrong, I'm not saying it's the right, I'm saying at the county, putting my county hat on now, we have to make decisions that are fiscally responsible. And the math again kind of shows itself as well. Even if we wanted to go back and look at it, which we're not willing to do because that's going to cost a lot of money to even go back and look at it, are we willing to redo the site plan, redo the road studies, spend all of the money and time to go back and fix a decision that was made at the best possible opportunity it could at that moment? So, I mean, it is not in our lane. It is a county decision. And the honest truth is if members of Cobourg Council want to go and petition to the county, they are more than welcome to do so as a private citizen. But again, should the Cobourg Council be questioning the decisions of the upper tier? I don't believe they should personally. I think that Cobourg Council should do Cobourg Council focused things. We'll go to, you want to follow up, Mr. Lewis first?
No, thank you, that's what I was.
No problem.
I was hoping to hear some of that last night, but I think your advice is good. You can certainly take delegations to the council, because the motion was not to stop the demolition, it was to relook at it, and out of a 150-bed building, could part of that building be kept for transition affordable?
It's really important to understand that even if I agreed with that decision, you'd have to convince 4 members of the county council to also agree with that. So I just want to be very clear that that's one of the reasons it has to be at the county level and not at the Cobourg level. We'll go to this gentleman, by all means.
Hi, good evening, Jeff. You mentioned the police earlier about having no control over the police, which I understand they're a separate entity. However, being a retired officer for 25 years in Durham region, we always got requests from the mayor to say, hey, you need more presence in this area, do you get into this area? I'm not sure whether you have that communication element over here, as chief, I can't see his badge, but you mentioned you had no control. I understand you don't lay any charges, but you can also ask for more presence in a certain area. Like, there's a school close to the encampment where the homeless people have their drug use going up and down the sidewalk. What's the problem with asking the chief or the superintendent, whoever, more presence in this area, please?
Yeah,
The other thing was, sir,
of
regards to your encampment, have you ever reached out to the city of Oshawa in regards to their enforcement of sheltered and homeless people, because they're at the top of the province and probably country as far as enforcing and looking after these kind of encampments?
So first of all, it's not that we don't hand in hand at all times. I have a great relationship with the chief of police. It's not that we don't ask that, it's that we trust our services. Our police over the last year have done 2 community outreach meetings. We've expanded our CTV network. We are putting more enforcement where it needs to go. But again, ladies and gentlemen, that means more dollars. So yes, the encampment is costing a lot of money in terms of services being provided. I don't have exact numbers from the police budget because I don't oversee that. But if we look at our fire budget and the costs to our firefighters, the number of times our firefighters have had to attend the encampment. If we look at the number of times bylaws have had to attend, yes, the encampment is costing us lots of money. But in terms of your police question, yes, of course, sir. We are always working with the police. But it's not necessarily the mayor that's calling for presence. It would be the council decision. Because I want to be very clear, I do respect that I am one of 7 and that it's not my job to necessarily get involved unless the council wants me to get involved. And our council has been making clear recommendations. I also think that as a leader, it's my job to support the other leaders in our community. And our chief of police is actually approaching it from what I would consider the appropriate step place. And I say that because we have some very strong advocates in this community who really want our police to overstep. There's a lot of advocacy in our community that would love to get a picture or a video of one of our police officers using just a little too much force. And I think our police chief is doing an incredible job maintaining his force's patience, calmness, and professionalism in the face of that to not prevent this from getting worse. We are on the same page and we are working in the same direction. And that's why you're seeing maybe sometimes the police aren't taking the lead. And instead we're approaching things with safety regarding our building codes and our fire codes, because that's an appropriate way to address these issues. So I do see what you're saying, sir, and I do agree, and we can work together, and we are. I have an incredible relationship with our chief of police, and I stand by it.
The way you presented us, like you had no control over them, which I know you don't, but I know that you have communication with them. Because once a month, we get a request from the mayor saying, hey, there's too much drug use at this place, can you guys get some presence down there? And right away, we'd be down there busting them, they just moved, kicking a can down the street. However, you're still doing it, you help the community, right? Everybody sees your presence. So if the mayor says that, good job, basically.
100%, and you are seeing that, ladies and gentlemen. We are moving it around, and I do appreciate that. I will go to Kara, I think, and then, yeah, we'll wrap it up.
If you received $1 million grant to use for the town any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
That's total law, and I appreciate that for the last one. It's easy, I put it in the reserves. Ladies and gentlemen, we have not put enough money away for our future. This council is facing economic situations, and it's not to blame anyone, it's not to point the finger, it's simply looking at the actual mathematics of it. So if we got $1 million grant, yeah, it would go straight into the budget, but again, that's only if I get to decide. Give me one that's not so much of a long ball there.
Okay, just going through to make sure we've addressed most of these. Okay, economic development, I want to know. What is the economic development plan for this town as it becomes a city? How are we weeding out the voices who have so far blocked further economic development from happening?
Fair enough. So I think we're already well on the path. We spoke about hiring an economic development manager. The first thing he did was develop a 5-year strategy for RecDev, and we can see the effects of that, whether it's the Venture 13 and the Startup Lab, whether you want to talk about the complete change in the downtown core of more and more businesses opening up, or the lack of space for industrial spaces, I think we're already seeing the economic development take shape. Sir, last one, as you stepped up, by all means.
The idea of losing lifeguards along the beach.
Yes.
Are we going to replace them next season?
I would vote no, because I was a lifeguard for 10 years. I have friends who, after being unable to save someone, committed suicide. I don't believe we should be tasking 15 and 16-year-olds with the saving of other people's lives. I know we have a shortage in Ontario of lifeguards, so now they've reduced the age of lifeguards to that of 15 and 16-year-olds. And to be honest, if you want to look at it, the liability factor, as a community, we're less liable with lifeguards. A lot of people are upset because this year there was an unfortunate incident on the beach. I'd like to point out that we had 2 full-grown men go in to help this individual, and they weren't able to successfully rescue this individual. So the idea of a 15-year-old being able to spot them from the beach to go out and save them is not a realistic situation. And furthermore, by not having lifeguards on the beach, we are not liable. It's not a nice thing to have to say, but again, sometimes making the right decisions aren't the most popular decisions. So no, I wouldn't change it, but then again, that's not saying that council would. We're going to wrap it up. We're getting a wrap-up sign. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming tonight. I truly appreciate your time and your energy. And thank you.
That's a great question.